January 26, 1943. 6:40 hours. The northern edge of the Red October Factory District, Stalingrad. The temperature is -22 degrees Celsius. Visibility is 120 meters. Snow drifts into the broken window frames and settles on spent cartridge cases. A reinforced concrete corridor, 25 meters long, has become a dead end. 32 men remain inside it. They are surrounded on three sides by Soviet infantry from the 13th Guards Rifle Division. The fourth side is blocked by collapsed masonry and a burned-out machine press weighing several tons. There is no rear exit. No radio contact. No medical evacuation possible. Retreat is impossible because there is nowhere to retreat to. The Volga lies 2 kilometers east, under artillery fire, its ice already cratered by shell impacts. German-held ground to the west fell during the night. The nearest friendly position is estimated at over 900 meters away, across open rubble swept by interlocking machine gun fire. Surrender is irrational because no organized captivity system exists here anymore. Prisoners taken in this sector over the last week have not been seen again. Ammunition and food shortages have erased any expectation of survival beyond the next few hours, regardless of compliance. Death is the expected outcome. At 6:41, Soviet mortars begin ranging shots. 3 rounds fall short. The fourth impacts directly above the corridor entrance, collapsing the upper stairwell. 2 men are killed instantly. 1 is wounded, femoral artery severed. He bleeds out in under 90 seconds. The Germans inside the corridor count their ammunition in silence. 7 rounds per rifle on average. 1 MG-34 with 114 rounds remaining. 2 Panzerfausts, both with cracked ignition caps from the cold. No resupply is coming. At 6:44, Soviet infantry probes the eastern access point. Footsteps on ice. Boots striking concrete. Voices at close range. Less than 10 meters. Grenades follow, F1 fragmentation, timed throws. The first detonates short. The second rolls into the corridor before exploding. Shrapnel wounds 3 men. 1 loses his left hand. The Germans return fire. Controlled bursts. Ammunition discipline enforced even now. The MG fires 12-round bursts, barrel already fouled, recoil sluggish from frozen oil. At 6:47, a runner arrives from a neighboring position, or what remains of it. He enters the corridor bleeding from the scalp, helmet missing. He brings no orders. Only information. The southern wall collapsed 10 minutes earlier. Soviet troops are now inside the adjacent building. They are moving laterally, room to room, parallel to the corridor. Encirclement is now complete. There is no operational objective left. No counterattack scheduled. No armored support. Luftwaffe aircraft were last heard overhead 3 days ago. The sound of engines now belongs exclusively to Soviet T-34s repositioning somewhere beyond sight. The men inside the corridor do not discuss options. There are none. They adjust positions by habit. Fields of fire are reassigned without spoken commands. 1 soldier checks his watch. It stopped at 2:10 during the night, spring frozen. At 6:50, Soviet loudspeakers activate somewhere beyond the rubble. The message is distorted by echo and wind. A call to surrender. It is repeated twice. No one responds. At 6:52, the first Soviet assault wave begins moving. Estimated strength, 80 to 100 men. Supported by at least 2 light machine guns and 1 flamethrower team, heard but not yet seen. The Germans are outnumbered more than 3 to 1 in immediate contact range. More beyond that. At 6:53, the flamethrower ignites. Fuel pressure is audible. The sound alone causes 2 men to recoil involuntarily. 1 vomits inside his scarf. At this point, survival is no longer a consideration. The only remaining variable is duration. The situation has become mechanically impossible. 5 years earlier. In March 1938, the man who would later stand inside the Red October factory corridor lived in a rented second-floor apartment in Chemnitz, Saxony. The building faced a tram line. Noise was constant. Coal dust settled on the windowsills. His name was Unteroffizier Karl-Heinz Mahler. At that time, he was a machinist by trade. Employed at a textile machinery works on the outskirts of the city. 6 days a week. 10-hour shifts when orders were heavy. Pay was regular. Work was repetitive. He was 27 years old. He lived with his wife, Anna, and their daughter, Ingrid, born in November 1937. The apartment had 2 rooms, a kitchen, and no indoor plumbing. Water was carried up from a shared tap in the courtyard. Heating came from a single iron stove. Winters were cold but predictable. Mahler's civilian life was unremarkable. He was not politically active. He did not attend rallies. He was not a party member. His employment record described him as zuverlässig, reliable. No leadership qualities noted. No disciplinary issues. Evenings were spent repairing household items, reading newspapers, or sleeping early for the morning shift. Sundays involved family visits or walks along the Chemnitz River. His name does not appear in any newspaper prior to the war. He left no written memoirs. No known photographs exist outside official documents. In September 1939, when Germany invaded Poland, the event did not immediately alter his routine. His factory received new contracts. Output increased. Overtime became common. Rationing began gradually. Nothing felt exceptional. His conscription notice arrived in April 1940. The letter was brief. Reporting date. Location. Required documents. No explanation. No option to refuse. At the time, his daughter was 2 years old. His wife was pregnant again but miscarried later that summer while he was already in uniform. He reported as ordered. He did not make speeches. He did not say goodbye dramatically. He packed clothing, shaving kit, and a photograph of his family. The photograph was folded once and placed inside his pay book. The army did not need his individuality. Only his body and his hands. He was one of thousands. Training began in May 1940 at a replacement battalion in Saxony-Anhalt. Infantry instruction. Drill. Weapons handling. Marches of increasing distance. 30 kilometers with full pack became routine by the end of the second month. The instructors emphasized obedience and speed. Questions were discouraged. Mistakes were corrected physically. Sleep deprivation was normalized. Fear was not discussed. By August 1940, Mahler was promoted to Gefreiter based on seniority and technical competence. He showed aptitude with machine tools and was assigned as assistant gunner on a machine gun team. The MG-34 became familiar. Its weight. Its maintenance. Its failure modes. He did not yet fire it in combat. That came later. His unit designation changed twice during reassignments and reorganizations. By early 1942, he was part of the 305th Infantry Division, attached to Infantry Regiment 578. Eastern Front. The train eastward took 6 days. Boxcars. Straw on the floor. Minimal heating. Several men fell ill. One died of pneumonia before reaching the assembly area near Kharkov. His body was removed quietly at a rail stop. No ceremony. The front was not what training had suggested. The first engagement occurred in June 1942, during operations toward the Don River. The enemy was the Red Army, dug in along tree lines and shallow defensive belts. Artillery was constant. The ground shook continuously. Sleep came in fragments measured in minutes. On June 19, 1942, Mahler's platoon advanced across open ground under small arms fire. Distance, approximately 400 meters. No armored support. Visibility was reduced by smoke and dust. Within the first 3 minutes, 2 men were hit. One screamed continuously until he was silenced by another shell impact. The MG-34 jammed after 87 rounds. Dust contamination. Mahler cleared it under fire, hands shaking despite training. He resumed firing. The target was indistinct. Movement only. He could not identify individuals. When the firing stopped, 14 men from the company were missing or dead. 3 wounded were evacuated. The rest remained where they fell. Later that night, while redistributing ammunition from the dead, Mahler recognized one body. A man from his barracks. Same age. Same hometown region. No visible head wound. Chest penetrated. Eyes open. Mahler did not speak about it. He did not need to. The lesson was immediate and internal. People disappeared quickly. Without meaning. By August 1942, he was promoted to Unteroffizier due to attrition. Not merit. Survival. He now commanded a small group. 8 to 10 men depending on losses. He learned to give short orders. He learned that hesitation caused casualties. He also learned that withdrawal, when delayed even slightly, resulted in encirclement. This understanding would matter later. By September 1942, the 305th Infantry Division was reassigned south toward Stalingrad. The movement was conducted in stages. Rail to Kalik. Foot march east from there. Daytime temperatures reached 30 degrees Celsius. Dust clogged weapons and lungs. Water was rationed to 1 liter per man per day. Dysentery was common. Boots failed rapidly under the conditions. Replacements arrived continuously and disappeared just as fast. Mahler's squad changed composition weekly. Names were learned and forgotten. He stopped asking about backgrounds. Rank structure remained on paper but functioned only loosely. Orders arrived late or not at all. Maps were often outdated by days. On September 14, 1942, the division entered the outskirts of Stalingrad. The city was already largely destroyed. Buildings reduced to partial walls. Streets unrecognizable. Landmarks erased. Smoke limited visibility to under 200 meters even in daylight. Artillery fire was constant and indiscriminate. Urban combat training had been minimal. The reality was immediate and unforgiving. On September 18, Mahler's platoon was ordered to clear a 4-story apartment block near the Tsaritsa Gorge. The building had been hit repeatedly but remained structurally intact. Soviet resistance was expected to be light. It was not. At 15:20 hours, the platoon entered through the west-facing ground floor entrance. Within 30 seconds, a Soviet machine gun opened fire from the second-floor stairwell. 2 men were hit. One was killed instantly. The other crawled for cover, leaving a visible blood trail. Mahler's squad took cover behind a collapsed interior wall. Distance to the enemy position was estimated at 12 meters. Grenades were thrown. One failed to detonate. Another detonated but had no effect. Communication with platoon command was lost after a nearby shell severed the field telephone wire. Radio contact was intermittent and unusable inside the building. At 15:27, Soviet infantry counterattacked from above and below simultaneously. The sound of boots on stairs echoed in the confined space. Visibility dropped further due to dust and smoke. Mahler ordered a withdrawal to the entrance corridor. The order was delayed by confusion. One man did not hear it. Another hesitated, attempting to retrieve the wounded. By the time the squad reached the corridor, Soviet troops were already inside the building behind them. The withdrawal route was compromised. What followed lasted approximately 9 minutes. At close range, combat became chaotic and directional awareness collapsed. Shots were fired at movement. Identification was uncertain. A Soviet soldier was killed at less than 2 meters. A German private was struck by friendly fire during the exchange. He died without speaking. Mahler expended 183 rounds from the MG-34 before the barrel overheated. He replaced it under fire. His hands were burned through his gloves. Pain registered but did not alter function. At 15:36, with ammunition nearly exhausted and Soviet forces pressing from multiple directions, Mahler made a decision without waiting for confirmation. He ordered his remaining men, for at that point, to break through a side wall into an adjacent structure using demolition charges originally intended for barricade clearing. The charge was improvised. The explosion injured 1 man. The opening was barely sufficient. They escaped through the breach and reached a secondary defensive line 2 buildings away. Casualties from the platoon totaled 19 out of 38. The building remained contested. No further attempt was made to retake it that day. That evening, Mahler accounted for his squad. Only 3 men remained unwounded. 2 had been killed. 3 were missing, presumed dead or captured. No commendation followed. No reprimand either. The action was not recorded in detail. The platoon commander was killed 2 days later. Documentation ceased to matter. What remained was the lesson. Delay in decision-making resulted in encirclement. Waiting for orders resulted in isolation. Initiative was not rewarded, but hesitation was punished immediately and lethally. As the weeks passed, the fighting intensified. Positions changed hands multiple times per day. Buildings were fought over floor by floor, room by room. Gains were measured in meters. Losses were measured in names crossed off lists. By November 1942, winter had set in. Temperatures dropped sharply. Supply lines stretched thin. Ammunition allocations were reduced. Food became irregular. Frostbite cases increased. On November 19, Soviet forces launched a large-scale offensive north and south of Stalingrad. The encirclement of the German 6th Army followed within days. Mahler's regiment was gradually pushed back into the industrial districts. Defensive positions became static. Relief operations were discussed but not observed. Air supply drops were inconsistent and often landed in Soviet-held areas. By January 1943, the situation had deteriorated beyond recovery. Units were fragmented. Command structure was largely nominal. Survival depended on local decisions made under extreme pressure. Mahler had learned, through repeated exposure, that there would be no rescue at the critical moment. When that moment arrived again, he would not wait. January 26, 1943. 6:54 hours. The Soviet assault enters the corridor in stages, not as a rush. Fire teams advance in short bounds. 1 kneels. 1 fires. 1 reloads. Discipline is evident. Experience, not haste. Mahler observes this without commentary. He is positioned 5 meters from the blocked western end, kneeling behind a fractured concrete column. The MG-34 is mounted low, bipod legs uneven on rubble. The assistant gunner was killed at 6:41. Mahler is operating the weapon alone. He counts targets mechanically. Left to right. He does not fire until silhouettes are fully committed. At 6:55, he gives the order to open fire. The MG fires a 15-round burst. Recoil is sluggish. 2 Soviet soldiers fall. 1 crawls out of sight. The rest withdraw temporarily. Return fire follows immediately. Bullets strike concrete at head height. Spall wounds the man to Mahler's left. The man does not react. Ammunition remaining, 99 rounds. At 6:57, a German private attempts to reposition closer to the eastern entrance. He is struck by rifle fire mid-movement. Entry wound upper chest. Exit wound not observed. He collapses face down. No one moves to retrieve him. At 6:58, the flamethrower team advances again. Fuel ignites briefly, then cuts out. Mechanical failure. The operator retreats. The threat remains but is delayed. Mahler notes this without visible reaction. At 7 o'clock, a runner from another isolated group enters the corridor through a partially collapsed side opening. He brings fragmented information. Soviet armor is moving closer. The southern sector has collapsed completely. No German units remain in organized formation within immediate reach. The runner is wounded. He sits down against the wall and does not get up again. Mahler checks his watch again out of habit. It still does not function. At 7:02, Soviet grenades are thrown in rapid succession. 3 detonations. 2 German soldiers are killed. 1 is wounded severely. Abdominal trauma. He attempts to speak. No sound emerges. Remaining German strength, 19 men capable of fighting. At this point, the corridor can no longer be held by sustained fire. Ammunition reserves are insufficient. Barrel temperature is approaching failure. The MG has already experienced 2 feed interruptions. The men look toward Mahler without speaking. He does not address them immediately. He recalls the apartment block near the Tsaritsa Gorge. The hesitation. The delay. The encirclement that followed. At 7:04, Mahler issues a short order. Not shouted. Not explained. The MG team will hold fire. All remaining riflemen will prepare fragmentation grenades. Fuse timing is adjusted manually. 4 seconds. No throwing until ordered. This decision is not based on bravery. It is based on geometry. The corridor narrows at the eastern end. Ceiling height drops to under 2 meters. Soviet troops must compress to pass through. Fields of fire are limited. Grenades, thrown at close range, will maximize effect. Ammunition conservation is no longer relevant. Duration is. At 7:06, Soviet infantry advances again. Estimated strength now exceeds 100. The corridor fills with smoke and dust. Visibility drops to under 5 meters. At 7:07, the first Soviet soldier enters the narrowed section. Mahler gives the order. Grenades are thrown in sequence. Not all detonate as intended. Some bounce unpredictably. The explosions are confined. Lethal radius overlaps. The effect is immediate. Soviet casualties are significant but not decisive. The assault does not stop. It adapts. Fire increases. A light machine gun is brought forward. At 7:09, Mahler fires the MG again. Controlled bursts. Ammunition remaining, 43 rounds. At 7:10, a Soviet bullet strikes the MG receiver. The weapon jams permanently. The barrel cannot be changed in time. The MG is out of action. This removes the last sustained fire capability. Mahler does not attempt to fix it. At 7:11, he draws his pistol. A Walther P38. 2 magazines remaining. 16 rounds total. He gives a final order. The remaining men are to break in small groups toward the northern breach created earlier by shelling. It is not a viable escape route. It is a movement that will force Soviet fire to split. He does not include himself in this order. There is no farewell. No acknowledgement. The men move. Some are cut down immediately. Some reach the breach. Their fate is unknown. Mahler remains at the western end, pistol in hand, behind the disabled MG. At 7:13, Soviet infantry reaches his position. What follows is brief. January 26, 1943. 7:18 hours. The corridor is silent. Smoke lingers near the ceiling. Dust settles slowly. Visibility improves to approximately 10 meters. The temperature remains unchanged. -22 degrees Celsius. Soviet infantry secures the position methodically. Weapons are trained on bodies. Movement is checked twice. No resistance remains. German casualties inside the corridor are counted after clearance. 32 men were present at 6:40. 27 are confirmed dead on sight. 3 are found severely wounded and later die from exposure and blood loss. 2 are unaccounted for. Their status is unknown. Ammunition expenditure is estimated from remaining equipment. MG-34, 271 rounds fired. Weapon disabled by impact damage. Rifles, approximately 180 rounds expended collectively. Grenades, 14 fragmentation grenades thrown. Pistol ammunition, 13 rounds fired from a Walther P-38. Soviet casualties are not recorded precisely. A post-action report from the 13th Guards Rifle Division estimates 12 killed and at least 20 wounded during the assault on the corridor. These figures are conservative and incomplete. No territory of operational significance is gained. The corridor itself measures 25 meters in length and 3 meters in width. It holds no strategic value beyond temporary cover. By 9 o'clock hours, Soviet forces advance past it toward the factory interior. The position is abandoned by midday. Mahler's body is identified by documents found in his tunic pocket. The folded photograph is still present. The pay book records his rank as Unteroffizier. No personal effects are removed. His actions are not cited in any official German report. The unit to which he belonged no longer exists as an effective formation. Command records are fragmented. Higher headquarters is preoccupied with broader collapse. There is no immediate tactical consequence tied to the stand inside the corridor. The overall situation of the German Sixth Army remains unchanged. Encirclement continues. Surrender of the southern pocket occurs 5 days later. The corridor becomes just another cleared position among hundreds. By the evening of January 26, snow covers the bodies again. There is no post-war life for Unteroffizier Karl-Heinz Mahler. His death is recorded administratively in March 1943, weeks after the fighting has ended. The notification is delayed due to the destruction of unit records and the collapse of communications during the final phase of the Stalingrad battle. The official cause of death is listed as gefallen im Osten. Killed in the East. No location is specified. No time. No circumstances. The notice reaches Chemnitz in April 1943. It is delivered by mail. No officer appears in person. The document consists of a single page, stamped and signed by a replacement command office that never knew him. His wife receives it at home. By then, rationing has intensified. Coal is scarce. Air raids have become routine. She reads the notice once and folds it carefully. It is placed in a drawer with other documents. There is no pension of significance. No ceremony. No grave to visit. His daughter is 5 years old when the war ends. She does not remember him clearly. Only the photograph remains. The same one carried in his pay book. It is returned months later with other personal effects recovered by Soviet authorities and eventually forwarded through Red Cross channels. The photograph shows a man in civilian clothes. No uniform. No insignia. A tram line in the background. After 1945, Chemnitz is renamed. Factories are nationalized. Records are reorganized. Many wartime files are lost or destroyed. Mahler's name appears only in a casualty list compiled years later. One of thousands. No annotation. No memoir mentions him. No unit history describes the corridor. The factory ruins are rebuilt gradually. The exact location is altered by post-war construction. The corridor no longer exists. Nothing remains to mark the decision made at 7:11 hours on January 26, 1943. Only the administrative fact of absence. The engagement inside the Red October factory corridor did not alter the outcome of the Battle of Stalingrad. By the time it occurred, the German Sixth Army had already lost operational coherence. Supply levels were inadequate. Command authority was fragmented. Tactical decisions were made in isolation, without reference to a wider plan that no longer functioned. What happened at 7:11 hours on January 26, 1943 was not exceptional. Similar decisions were made simultaneously across the encirclement. In basements. In stairwells. In shell holes measured in meters. Each was shaped by exhaustion, memory, and an understanding of how quickly delay became fatal. Unteroffizier Karl-Heinz Mahler did not act to change the course of events. He acted to control a small span of time and space that was otherwise uncontrollable. The corridor was held for less than 30 minutes after his final order. No record preserves the precise sequence of his last actions. No evaluation assigns them value. War at this stage did not reward initiative or obedience consistently. It consumed both. What remains is the pattern. Large formations disintegrate. Decisions compress. Outcomes narrow. Individual judgment replaces doctrine by necessity, not design. This occurred repeatedly, across all armies, wherever systems failed faster than men could adapt. The corridor was one such place. It no longer exists.